In essence, they're borrowing money from new investors to pay off the old investors, just like Bernie Madoff. In fact, in jail, Bernie Madoff even said the US government is running the biggest Ponzi scheme on earth, and he would know a Ponzi scheme if he sees one. He's not the only one though. Michael Snyder wrote, "The Fed is the biggest Ponzi scheme in the history of the world, and if the American people truly understood how it really works, they would be screaming for it to be abolished immediately." And Michael Lombard stated, quote, "Right now, we are seeing the government hoping investors will keep reinvesting in US bonds while the Fed picks up the slack. But what happens if they say, we want our money back? It would make Madoff's Ponzi scheme look like a joke." So, you can take that for what you will. So in wrapping up, what are the signs to watch out for to avoid Ponzi schemes? To avoid falling victim, people should always watch out for returns that seem too good to be true. A promise of high returns with minimal risk is a sure red flag. Such investments just don't exist. Usually, with high returns, you should see high risk. Another red flag could be the consistency of returns. Investments are linked to market conditions, and that should affect the returns that they bring. If a scheme promises consistent high returns without being affected by market conditions, there's a good chance that it could be a Ponzi scheme. As technology evolves, there's going to be new forms of the same old trick. Fake cryptocurrencies are the new flavor of the decade so far, and the reason being is that they're poorly understood by many. Very recently, some large YouTubers have taken part in a scam called Save the Children coin, a coin which promised to help kids in need, but also was promised to go up in value. The scheme promised to go to the moon, but in reality, it just crashed. Those who had the knowledge that the whole thing was a scam got out immediately with a bunch of money, and everyone else lost everything. So be careful out there. If you're curious and want to see more on the Save the Children coin, the YouTube channel CoffeeZilla did a great series on it. Before we continue, I just want to give a quick shout out to today's sponsor, Raycon Wireless Earbuds. Raycon reached out to me to try their wireless earbuds, so I decided to give them a go. I've been using their everyday earbuds for a few weeks now. They fit really well in my ears, and there's a bunch of different tips to suit whatever ear shape you have. I use them when I go on my morning run, and also for calls with their built-in microphone. I didn't have any issues with them coming loose or falling out of my ears at all. These earbuds have 8 hours of playback time and 32-hour battery life. Raycon start at half the price of other premium audio earbuds, but you're getting the same sound. If, for any reason, you're... Hi, welcome to another Cold Fusion video. There are some people in this world who are gifted, who excel beyond the rest. They are leaders, visionaries, and pioneers. A mystic, all-knowing confidence surrounds their image. Bernie Madoff was one of these people. He was one of the best traders on Wall Street. He was Wall Street. His consistent investment returns made him one of the best fund managers in the world. You couldn't just invest with Madoff. You had to know someone, be vouched for, earn the right to have your money accepted by him. Madoff served as the chairman of the Nasdaq and revolutionized the trading business. He had spent decades building his multi-billion-dollar empire until one day, the house of cards fell. And when the dust settled, all that remained was a decade of lies. At $65 billion, it was the largest Ponzi scheme the world had ever seen.
You are watching Cold Fusion TV.
Bernie Madoff would start his investment firm in 1960. He started with $5,000 that he'd made working during the summertime as a lifeguard and another $50,000 from his father-in-law. In total, about $480,000 in today's money. In order to compete with large investment firms, Madoff turned to technology. His firm pioneered the use of electronic trading, opting away from the historic human traders. With this focus on technology, the company was able to provide a lower cost for their services, which led them to have a substantial share of market transactions. While the numbers are hard to find, it's believed that at one point, 5 to 10% of trades in New York went through the firm. In 1971, the Nasdaq was born. It came with a wave of new innovations in electronic trading. Today, the Nasdaq is the second largest stock exchange in the world, It's where companies like Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, Google, and Facebook choose to trade their shares. Bernie Madoff would go on to be the chairman of the Nasdaq in the early 90s. It was a very highly respected position. But as Wall Street was caught up in the mystic of Madoff, no one knew that behind the walls of Madoff's empire, something else was happening. Well, almost no one knew. Enter Harry Markopoulos. He was a financial fraud investigator who back in the 90s was working as a portfolio manager at Rampart Investment Management. In 1999, his firm had caught wind that a hedge fund manager of one of their partners was consistently returning a 1 to 2% profit per month. This turned out to be the work of none other than Bernie Madoff. Harry Markopoulos was subsequently given the task of replicating Madoff's strategy at his own firm, Rampart. As Harry began reverse engineering the strategy, he had no idea that he had just stumbled across the biggest financial scam Wall Street had ever seen. According to Harry, it took him 5 minutes of looking at Madoff's revenue stream to realize that things just didn't add up. Madoff's returns were too consistent. When the market went up, Madoff made a profit, and when the market went down, Madoff still made a profit. Harry Markopoulos was adamant that Madoff's returns weren't real. The returns seemed to be unfazed by the market conditions. There was little to no fluctuation despite the market movements. Harry had two theories. Either Madoff was trading on insider information, or this was all a giant Ponzi scheme. A Ponzi scheme is a pretty simple concept. Investors would give Madoff their money to invest, and Madoff gives them a healthy return. The return doesn't come from actual investments. He simply gives back a small portion of their initial investment and calls that a return. Eventually, the money dries up, so the stock needs to be replenished. Madoff then moves on to the next investor, and so the scam grows larger. On paper, the investor has money invested in Madoff's firm and gets a good return. In reality, the money is being siphoned into Madoff's own accounts, as well as paying off old investors to keep the lie afloat. It almost seems too ridiculous to believe. How could this have happened on such a scale under the nose of some of the greatest financial minds in the world? That was the talent of Madoff. He knew how to lie and how to be convincing of it. And besides, who would dare question the man who helped build the modern Wall Street? As Harry began further deconstruct Madoff's strategy, he immediately ran into mathematical inconsistencies. For example, he calculated that in order for Madoff's strategy to work, he would have to have bought more options on the Chicago Board of Options Exchange than actually existed. In addition, he couldn't find a single transaction by Madoff's firms on the exchange. Harry spoke with a dozen equity firms, but none of them had made any trades with Madoff. And this was strange. In reality, Madoff hadn't made a single trade since 1993, or perhaps even earlier. In 2000, Harry Markopoulos took his findings to the Securities and Exchange Commission, otherwise known as the SEC. But Harry didn't have any hard evidence against Madoff. It was just a theory and some red flags. Therefore, an investigation wasn't opened. But Harry wasn't the only one who was suspicious over Madoff. When asked about it several years later, he confirmed that hundreds of people within Wall Street had been suspicious. But when asked why none of them ever reported anything, he responded, quote, "People in glass houses don't throw stones." By 2005, Markopoulos had uncovered many more red flags surrounding